So our next speaker is Tim Price. Tim is someone I've known for a year. I met Tim a year ago at an event very similar to this at Village Hall in the village of Pinehurst for an event that we had. And Tim is a strong man of God. He's an ordained Baptist preacher. He's an entrepreneur. He's a school teacher. He has a big heart for this topic, and his story will captivate you. So, Tim, please come on up.
Thank you very much. Try not to take too much time. I should be through in 2 or 3 hours. So I am a Baptist preacher. You heard that, right? You heard me. Okay, so I do want to get right to it. I want to, not to toot my horn, I want to tell you so you will understand if you think you're prepared for this type of thing. So he talked to you a little bit about Baptist minister, but former law enforcement, firefighter, EMS. I've done a lot of things. I've been there, done that, so to speak. I'm not new to the game. I understand things that go on. So in my family, I was prepared. I'm the guy that goes out from the time I was actually had to get written permission from the governor to go through police academy because I went in so young. And I wanted to help people. I was there for them and a lot of different things that I did. And I would love to educate people. I always thought education was the key. And so if anyone should be prepared, I certainly should. I'm looking at this from a lot of different points of view. Now at my age, so we have raised and trained 10 children, 5 biological children and 5 therapeutic foster children. So we're well aware of the game. I'm now a great-grandfather recently, but we have several grands as well, and a lot of nephews and nieces that are just like that to us. And so life full of kids, youth pastor before I became a senior pastor and other things. But I'm talking to people, I hear stories of this, and I always feel so sorry for them. My heart goes out. I'm reaching out with empathy. But one thing I know is those things will never happen to me in my household because I'm the strong man of the house. I make sure that I guard my house. So much so that we even moved behind closed gates in a community that we don't have to worry about that. We pay security guards to watch out for our community, and it's gated. Nobody can come in there, right? We have security cameras everywhere. Our house, is well protected. I have armaments in there. If they ever raid my house, those guns, I'm not a nut, all right? I'm just prepared, okay? So don't believe the lies. But my daughter, I love her with all my heart. She is the most precious thing in the world to me. And she was our last child born, I believe, a gift from God. And so doted on her quite a bit. And I've always felt like knowledge is power. One of the things I have learned the older I get is knowledge is meaningless if you don't put that into action. And it then becomes wisdom. But prior to the action, it's just knowledge, and it's just as useless as not having any knowledge if it's not put into practice. But I would like to just briefly tell you about what happened, and more importantly, I want to talk about prevention because that's what I care about more than anything else. So at 14 years old, my daughter, who was at less risk you would consider than most, was kidnapped ultimately, but not necessarily the way that you would think of. I think our typical thoughts are that you're at home or they're away at a party, at a friend's house, a sleepover, something like that, or maybe even at the grocery store or the mall, and somebody comes and snatches them, a stranger, somebody you've never seen, and that type of thing. And I'm here to tell you that's not normally the way that it happens. I know from my law enforcement years that the majority of abuse comes from someone that the family knows, usually a family friend or a member of the family. The majority of the time, that is the case. Unfortunately, this is why law enforcement always, when there's a kidnapping or something to that effect, the first suspects, it's unfortunate, but the truth is that the numbers bear it out, is always going to be the family members, those closest to them. And then hopefully you rule them out quickly and move and find someone else. But in this case, what happened was we were at church, and the church had a thriving ministry to help people that are so-called down and out, if you will. We had a person at the church who had been going. This boy was adopted by missionaries from out of gangs in a foreign country and brought to this country. So he actually had good upbringing, but unfortunately a lot of the things that happened to him in that gang continued to carry over. So he had gotten involved in drugs and a lot of other issues. As such, he had allowed his mind to become perverted, watching a lot of pornography. If you will go back to what I consider the landmark commission study that's ever been done, it was an old study, and it's just as relevant back then or now as it was then. And that was the Dobbs Commission that was done as a presidential commission study, the largest that's ever been conducted. And what they found out, actually more so related to homicides and the brutality. It goes back to pornography, but it's also sexual molestation and kidnapping and all sorts of human trafficking. And so pornography is a huge, huge, huge player. And it's something we need to really have at our forefront and be aware of, and not sweep things like that under the rug anymore in our society. So my daughter, a long story short, was approached by this man, 25 years old, and she was 14, at church. Unbeknownst to me, I never saw any wayward looks, realized that there was anything like that going on. And in a very, very short time, like our last speakers discussed, we're not talking about things that have to go on in our grooming process for months and years and that type of thing. For these children, it's very, very, very quick. And so he begins to tell her, I love you, you are going to be my life, my world, these type of things. And a 14-year-old girl begins to very quickly believe that. What happens at 14? I want independence. I'm starting to get older. Hormones are changing. I want to be out of the home soon, be on my own. And they begin to have these images of what's going to happen in their lives, right? And then you have a man that starts paying attention to them, and he's somewhat on her level, right? Because they know how to talk and speak, and she's tricked. And so what happens is she invites him, unbeknownst to us, to go, or he actually asked her if he can go swimming in our community, and you have to be let in through that. So he goes over, and it's supposed to be him and one of his children, or a child that he has from another woman whom he trafficked, we found out later. And she has been addicted to drugs for many years and struggling with that. Of course, I would never dare mention a name, but as a result of those type of things. And it's a very, very sad situation. But regardless, he is supposed to come over with this little boy, but it's just him that shows up. She doesn't think anything about it. They have fun. To her, this is sneaky a little bit. The parents don't know about it, but it's innocent fun. It's harmless, and the guy's paying attention to me. This goes on for 2 or 3 days. Now, here is where developing a thriving community of friends and a network really pays off, because I'm here to tell you, if it wasn't for my daughter's friends, I probably today wouldn't know where my daughter was. So it so happens that her friends come to the pool and they see this full-grown man with my 14-year-old daughter who thinks she's full-grown, and they're like, hey, how old is this guy? And oh, don't worry about it. He's okay. But they're really suspicious, and they begin to take pictures of him. And of course, when they're doing that, he's every way he can trying to cover up. He doesn't want to be seen. But they get the pictures, and thank God they took a picture as he was leaving of the vehicle and the license plate. It's probably the only thing that saved us, because she was ultimately found in Elizabeth City after I discovered, because the friends said, hey, we need to talk to you. I went and I said, what's going on? We didn't want to tell you, and we don't want her mad at us, but on the phone. We had to talk to you. We need to tell you that there was some man that she's been hanging around that's coming over, and you need to do something. Oh, what? I go home, of course, and trying my best, because not only pastor, law enforcement, this, that, and the other, after I had gotten injured, I actually got a degree in counseling, right? And so I became a counselor. So now I'm a mental health advocate, counseling people like this all the time that go through these issues. And so I began to try to calm them down and say, all right, counselor, practice thine own medicine here. And I'm trying to be kind and talk to her, but I'm angry. And I say, this boy is in some serious trouble here, even though at this point nothing has happened. And she's scared. She calls him. She sneaks, as soon as she gets through with our long talk, she has called him. He's waiting at the cul-de-sac. She sneaks out of the window to go talk to him, and this is the last we know anything about it. We wake up in the morning. Well, I wake up with my wife screaming, Tim, she's gone, she's gone, she's gone. And she's naturally in a panic. So I can't really believe what my head is telling me, because I know that couldn't be true. And so instead, we do call the sheriff's department right away, and very quick response. I commend them and thank them for their help. But I'm running down the golf course looking, because sometimes when she's stressed, she likes to go for jogs, and I'm going down everywhere trying to find my daughter. I know there's no way that she could be with him. And ultimately, thank God, what seemed like weeks and weeks ends up being a couple of days. And they found her in Elizabeth City. He had tried to go to Wilmington, Port City, because she has brothers that live there. She was like, no, I don't want to go to Wilmington. And they end up going to Elizabeth City. So he drugs her. There's a lot of things that go on that are untoward. And thank God the Elizabeth City Police Department identified the vehicle because of the BOLO that we had, a be on the lookout thing that had been issued from law enforcement. So they were able to call Ward County, who came, arrested him ultimately. And I will say that he got the maximum sentence. You can clap there. Yeah. So minus 1 year served already when he was tried. And we spoke, and one of the hardest things that I ever had to do as a parent, speak at that trial and tell him that I was glad that he was caught, I was glad he was being punished, but also offer him the grace and love of Jesus Christ, because that's a very real thing. And hoping that, of course, he will change. Sometimes it is difficult to practice what you preach. But it had to be done. It was the right thing to do, and I praise God that he gave us the ability. And I'm so proud of my daughter, because she actually was able by that time to do the same thing. And she's been in therapy at one point, actually having to go into therapy away from the house for a while. That was the most difficult thing that has ever happened to our family, all of this, but being without my daughter for months while she is trying to basically get her head back on her shoulders, so to speak, to recover from these traumas, which I'm so thankful to Rachel's Refuge and what's happening there. This is the exact same type of things that we're talking about. They wrap their arms around these victims and these families, so thank God for that. But I want to spend more time talking to you about, I don't even know how I am on time, but okay, 7 minutes. So I'm going to spend less time, but more importantly, talk to you about what we need to really be thinking. So number one, you need to prepare. I thought I was prepared. You can never prepare enough, I promise you that. But we need to train ourselves, be aware. You train for what's going to happen in a fire. You train for what happens if this happens, a tornado drill or whatever. Why would you not train your children of what they need to know and be aware of? Too many times we avoid these difficult topics, but we need to be on it. We need to be talking to them, not assuming. Because I had talked to her, I had trained her about certain things, but not in depth enough, not to the point that I needed to. We have to teach them to be assertive. He talked about how that they're groomed so easily, and that is so true. Why? Because a child is used to listening to authority. They have never made decisions on their own. They've always had parents telling them what to do. And now they have a grown man who knows how to manipulate them. And they will listen most of the time, eventually. Perhaps not at first, but they will allow themselves to be talked into stuff. So you have to teach them how to be assertive. Not aggressive, but assertive. To stand up for themselves. To understand it's okay to look a grown man in the eye and say, no, get away from me. Right? It's okay to unfriend somebody. It's okay to scream and run and teach them how to not be embarrassed. How do you teach them that? We're going to the mall and let's practice this. Yeah. Come on right now. And it's okay because if Daddy gets in handcuffs, Daddy is going to be all right because he's not going to fight. He's not going to get shot. But let's go to the mall, and I want you to go here, and I want you to scream bloody murder and scream loud and keep running. If they don't do it right, you keep making them do it until they do it. Train your children how to act, how to respond in these situations. They have to be prepared. Naturally, my phone goes down, right at this moment. So obviously, sometimes this has to be age appropriate, but do not give in. They are going to scream when you try to make them do things for their best interest. One of our issues with, we knew not to give her a cell phone. I knew it as good as the day is long. And I said, my daughter will never get a cell phone until, and the other ones didn't, but she's my baby. And she kept, Daddy, all the other ones have a cell phone. You are so old and you're so controlling and you won't let me, and breaking Daddy's heart, right? Let your heart be broken. Don't let them have a cell phone until they're old enough to have the cell phone. It doesn't matter if they feel ostracized. I would much rather her have been ostracized, to have been called out, and that wouldn't have really happened, but she would have felt like it would have, right? Rather than what did happen. Don't let them even have the ability until they're old enough. When they are old enough, then you do need to monitor, like the gentleman discussed. Monitor it. Who cares if they say you're invading their privacy? Invade it. Invade it day in and day out. Let them know, because guess what? When they know that any moment you might look through their phone, they are going to be very careful about what they look at or who they talk to on their phone. Make sure they know that when they talk on that phone, the door is open. They don't have a closed door. Don't let them take it into the bathroom where you know there's going to be some amount of undress going on. Think about it. Understand that you need to make sure that they understand you love them and you do not trust them. But you need to develop a fact that they need to trust you. And how can that be done? Because you model it. I know that sounds crazy. A lot of you are like, how in the world could I tell my sweetheart I don't trust him? Let them know it. You should let them know, I love you, and the whole point is you're not old enough to make these decisions on your own. It's not that I think you're a bad person. It's not that I think that there's anything wrong with you, but I know that you need my guidance as your parent, right? We need to understand that, and they need to understand that we can be trusted by them completely. We do that by modeling acceptance. We do that by modeling forgiveness. You make sure that they understand there is nothing in the world that they could tell you that would shock you or hurt you so bad that you cannot deal with it. I don't care what you tell me, I'm okay with it, and we will get through it no matter what it is. If you tell me that and you list some of the worst things you can think about, that you're this way or somebody did this to you, it's fine. As a matter of fact, let's have this conversation. We'll pretend, and you role model something I learned in counseling. It helps a lot. Role model these things for them and play out scenarios. Understand grooming versus sexualization. There's a big difference there. They are being sexualized. Because of that, they are going to be easily groomed. That was the gentleman's point earlier. Make sure that you understand, gone are the days when we can be silent due to embarrassment or inappropriate nature of these issues. This is not the 1960s where it's a shame if you're divorced. Guess what? There are a lot of taboo topics that our parents and our grandparents said you can't talk about that you better talk about, because you're headed for trouble very potentially if you don't. We need to have open dialogue with our children, our grandchildren, and whoever it is that will listen, to make sure. Don't be afraid to stand up for morality despite social norms. This was a big one right here. In your home, you make it known that we won't have pornography in our home. We're not going to have these issues that other people do in our home. It doesn't matter what everybody else is doing. It doesn't matter if the neighbor does this. It doesn't matter if every kid on our block or at school does this. In our house, this is what we expect. This is what will happen. I love you. I'm not trying to be a dictator, but guess what? This isn't a democracy. This is my home, and this is how we behave at our home. It's not judgmental towards others, but this is what we're doing here, right? Dobbs Commission, I talked about that, but understand that one of the things they pointed out is that the fatherless rate and the single parent plight. Now, this is not a popular thing to talk about. I understand that. If you want to throw tomatoes, I'm cool with that. It's okay. I can take it. But you need to understand that because of that, there's two issues. There's one, the boys that were not raised by fathers many times, and that affects things very adversely in our society. And the opposite is true as well. Many girls have gone without knowing the affection of a father, and they are searching for that. Just the way that children look for acceptance, period, but especially it's compounded when that happens. Now, I'm not saying anything negative towards these families at all. We love them, we embrace them, but we do need to understand that this does increase issues, and because of that, we have to be prepared for it. So lastly, understand that they are easily manipulated, and that there is a cyclical nature towards abuse, meaning that if we don't stop it with this generation, it is going to continue to thrive and grow, as you've seen a 500-something% just in 1 year increase. And as we continue to have people coming into our community that we don't know, as it grows, we'll continue to have more and more of those type of things. We have to be prepared for it, understand it. We can be loving and accepting of all people, but yet we can set firm ground rules on how things will operate in our home. And so I hope you'll be prepared, and thank you for taking a moment with me tonight.